All right, peace, family. This is Recharge Colonizing. Today I am your host. Unfortunately for us, we couldn't get Brother Kimbat in today because this morning he has some emergency, so we are with him. Our prayer and thoughts. But nevertheless, we're gonna go ahead today and get to the public what we have. So, by way of introduction, I am Frank Mauba, chair for the Political Action Committee. So, I'm going to allow Tiani to introduce herself, and then we can get into what we are here for.
Hey everyone, Tierney. I am the steering committee chair for Recharge Colonialism.
All right. So, today, what do we have in the news for the current event?
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay, so Nikole Hannah-Jones, many of you may know her from being the one who did the 1619 project, which has caused a lot of debate among people as far as critical race theory. Like, a lot of debate is going on, particularly like people who are in denial about America and America's present and America's past. So there's a lot of debate going on around her project, which basically breaks down a lot of the systemic racism that exists and has always existed in the United States. So, interesting enough, she has been denied tenure from the school that she was previously teaching at. I don't have it on the top of my head. Let me see. I think it might have been USC. If anyone knows, you could tell me in the comments. But she was denied tenure as a professor. And of course, tenure is like security whenever you're a college professor. UNC, sorry. So she was denied tenure there, and that's a white institution. A lot of people were upset. A lot of people were rallying against it, and people were waiting to see like what was going to happen. So there was a whole appeal process going on, and then UNC decided to basically reverse course and actually grant her tenure. But right whenever it was announced, like a week later, she announced that she was going to Howard University. Of course, Howard University is a historically Black college. So that was a very interesting move. So I definitely wanted to talk about that. There's a lot of talk that African people, we should be moving away from these white institutions. I personally always get irritated whenever I keep hearing people get upset at the system doing what the system is going to do, especially because when you think about the system of white supremacy, and these are people who have studied the system. Like Nikole Hannah-Jones, she studied the system. People like Cornel West, who was also denied tenure at, I believe, Princeton, he studied the system. These are people who are well acquainted with white supremacy. So I always get upset whenever those people who know, academically are surprised whenever the system does to them what they know it has always done to African people. So I thought it was very interesting that she made that move. I also remember there's a basketball player earlier this year or was it last year, who decided that he did not want to go to a white university. He was a star player. He decided to go to Howard, and he was encouraging other players to do the same thing. So I'm very interested to see, is this going to be a new assertion by African people inside of academic spaces that we're going to withdraw from these white institutions, and how much further will this go? Will you start seeing people withdraw from historically white movie studios and try to go to ones that are Black, or go also and withdraw from businesses that are white? Like, how far will this go inside of America? How far can it go? Because, realistically, African people, we are significantly disadvantaged with the institutions that do exist for us. And so do they have the capacity to compete with these white institutions? I just think it brings up a lot of questions. So do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, these are some of the things that we need to be discussing and we need to be looking at, because the issue here is Black first, empowering Black, and getting to rediscover ourselves, because that's the point. Mostly, like, we don't really know who we are. We don't really know the power that we possess as African people. And I think we are getting to that critical junction where we are trying to, actually rediscover ourselves. We are actually trying to get to understand how powerful, how elegant, and how, we are very forceful when it comes to society in a very positive way. So, I love our stand. And so we are, we will be waiting to get more story, more, how to call it, what will come afterward from this story. Um, yes, I think sometimes we have to be to a critical point where we have to say no, we have to disagree, to white supremacy. It's not always in the case where white supremacy will always take advantage of us and want to put us in a place where they think, we can fit. Despite that, we also have to know that we have to be the one to make decision and choices for ourselves as to where we need to be as well, and what we need to do to empower Black people, because we have come a long way. So I love the fact that we are trying to rediscover ourselves and how who we are. Anything to add to that?
I like to know thoughts, and I'll even like look for audience thoughts. Is this also could this be the start of something going further? Because I think what we've lost inside of academia and also inside of different business places is that this will to build things that are authentically African has really disappeared. Like if you compare how it was before, I think in many ways, like these places have gone backwards, particularly when you compare it to how it used to be.
That's true. That's true. Matter of fact, my first school in the United States here was an HBCU, the older HBCU in the nation. That was my first school, and I never one day have any regret of going there. In fact, I believe it built me out because I was able to learn and know how powerful we are, and I was able to learn and know, how resilient we are and how forceful we are. But on the other hand, when I went to Penn State, a white school, I never learned anything about myself, of who we are. I only get to know who we are when I went to a Black school, HBCU, and that's one of the things that we need to turn to now. We need to see Black scholars going to Black institution and actually getting the African perspective, who we were before the 1600, before slavery, because we can't keep saying civilization started from Africa, but every time you always hear first Black, first African American, first day, because when you start saying first this, first that, first African, first female, first male to do this, it's like you're taking our history from the 1600 doing slavery. But yet then still you come and tell us civilization, started from Africa. Civilization, started with Black people. And then come by and then say, first female, first male. So that is contradiction of our story. And that is why we need more Black scholars, into HBCU, into our institution, to pass on the knowledge of actually who we are, and we are trying to rediscover who we were before the 1600.
Can you give a little more perspective though? Because I remember you did go to HBCU. We met, a while back, and I was going to a white college. Like, I've heard though, like even in HBCUs though, a lot of the dynamics of the white system oftentimes play out where you'll see like kind of like privileged, a privileged class of African people. So I was just curious, like from her move, do you think that there needs to be more done with HBCUs, or do you think it's just good enough that she just...
No, it's not good enough. More need to be done. In fact, I'll tell you what, at Chino University, the issue here is, as long as the curriculum is still based on white supremacy, and as long the funding of institutions are still based on white supremacy, it actually becomes difficult for Black university or Black colleges to actually succeed in the direction of passing on the historical relevance of Black people. So even at Chino University, it was still difficult there because they were still picking books, and some of the books that we read were not actually from the white supremacy system or curriculum. The school actually forced it, to teach it because it was relevant. It was necessary to know about ourselves. And because of some of these things, it became a problem where HBCU are not really funded by the state or by the federal government and those things. So at the end of the day, they have to struggle on their own to raise fund for themselves in order to put it into those institutions and to upgrade their curriculum. Because at the end of the day, if funding are coming from the government, just like how non-black, how to call it, university are being funded by the federal government and empowered, that means black people will be empowered and their education or their history will be taught. And we know what that means. So it's not easy. There are more, to be done. We are still struggling, based on that and things. So, and in fact, because of that, it came to a point where they were saying that because Westchester and Cheney, they are in the same area. So they were saying that Cheney should go on a Westchester because, as we all know, there will be always a loophole within the system where people will be giving information to the white supremacy. So I believe there was information given to, outsider, and it was a problem. So the funding of going into Cheney mostly were people who were donating, to Cheney, black scholars and black entrepreneurs and black people who have money, mostly actually donate to Cheney University. And it's still a problem even up to today. The school, is still struggling financially in some area and things. Some places need to be strengthened. So due to that, they were saying that at that time I was about to graduate, they were saying that Cheney should be part of Westchester, and of course Westchester University is a white institution controlled by white how they call it believe and those things. So if Cheney go on a Westchester University, what that means is Westchester University will be Cheney will be controlled by Westchester University, and everything that will be taught at Cheney, make sure it will be in line of the white supremacy curriculum, and black history will not be mostly taught. So there are more need to be done. We're still struggling. It's not really perfect. It's not. We are still down. We are still struggling. So more need to be done, and we need more people like her, to come to HBCU.
Yeah, and I will throw, I'm not going to say which HBCU, but one of them that I know got some programming from the Department of Defense, or some funds from the Department of Defense. So, I do think that there are ways that the system does try to work inside of the institutions that are supposed to be for us and try to push their agenda. So we have to be very cautious of that, I think.
Yeah. All right, so we can get to the next topic. The next topic on the agenda here, as we all know, Haiti. Haiti is a country that even I would say some of the freedom that we are enjoying today, or how far that we have come today, it is also because of the contribution of Haiti. Haiti led that path of freedom that did encourage most of our revolutionary leaders to take a stand because of a small nation in the America, like Haiti, to take a stand during that time to actually go against the imperialists, go against France, go against Great Britain, even the United States, to fight for freedom. And because of that, Haiti have come through a long way with taking that kind of a punishment, because you fought for black liberation. So, and up to the 1804, Haiti have not really gained, full independence. Haiti had not gained full right as human being on this planet, as a nation on this planet. In some other way, Haiti have always been under tension and under control by European or Western propaganda and other those things and control. So recently we heard that I think last week, the president of Haiti was assassinated or got assassinated. So there is still investigation going on as to who did it, why it was done, and for what reason. But for some pictures or some information that we have got his assassination was not done by Haitian. There are some photos that we saw. It was done by non-Haitian or non-black. But again, the investigation is still going on. So they were missionary for some of the information that we found, and these were missionary that did the assassination. But the question here now is, who were those missionary and where they came from, who sent them, and for what reason? And the president of Haiti, actually, he was assassinated at his own private home. And so that also go against to say, where was the soldier? And, a thing again. So one of the things I want to point out here is, being an African president, the best thing to do, you have to be for your people. If you are for your people, it will be on no way for people to just penetrate your system, to just come in and harm you, because they will have to pass through your people first. They will have to pass through the wall of your people before even they get to you. But if you are not protecting your people, if you are not there for your people, like the president of Haiti, Jovenel Moïse, like he wasn't there for his people. So in other way, you become vulnerable because at any time you can be taken down. And the moment you become to desist from those you protect, those you protect their interest, the moment you stop protecting their interest, what's going to happen here is you'll become loose, and you will not have your people to protect you. And I think that was one of the area he actually fall short, because he was never for his people. He never protected his people. He was protecting foreign interests. He was protecting white supremacist interests. He was protecting the imperialist interests. But again, that goes to say, no matter how you protect the interests of these people in your country, you are never protected, because at the end of the day, the moment you become to not protect their interests, you never know how they're going to come for you. So yeah, so that's the issue right now with Haiti. Because even the interim prime minister also said that those at the court were speaking Spanish. So it's a whole lot of things going on here. So who are those missionaries?
Yeah, I mean, so if anyone didn't see it on We Charge Colonialism, I think probably the previous video to this one on our YouTube, you'll see that we did a interview of an activist who works in Haiti. And it was very telling. He wrote so many points, and it was like, I think the day after the assassination, but it seems like a lot of the points he made, like it's like we can see, because one of the points he made with the president was that he's someone who had some drug trading past, and it could be like one of the things he raised. It could be that someone just from his past, or someone in the cartels just got even with him. It's very interesting though to see how it's unraveling. So there was two people who were, I think, of Haitian descent, but they were American citizens. And then the rest, I think, were from Colombia. So it's one of those things, I think the U.S. was actually thrown off by this one. A lot of, we were speculating, like, was the U.S. involved? And I'm not sure, the CIA is tricky, so it's hard to even speculate, but it seemed like they weren't necessarily ready for this to happen. So it's very interesting to see unravel. But as you said, Jovenel Moïse, he was not for his people. He was the United States puppet. He was a puppet to the United Nations. He allowed the rape of Haiti to continue. And a lot of people died under his rule. So I think this is not something that was sad about at all. If anything, it is actually a victory for the people who've been pushing to get him out. So the thing we have to do is continue to support the people on the ground so that they do not get a replacement that's worse, because that does happen, sometimes. So yeah. And I think we see questions in the chat too. We can get to that after we.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. So is there any question?
About the HBCUs, I see a couple of questions, but you want to wrap up Haiti first?
Yeah, I can't see the question here at my end. So what are the questions?
Okay. Well, there was one before that. I'm sorry.
Okay, ABC can increase their leverage.
So it says, is there any difference in the universities in Ghana or Nigeria? There's less, is it where there's less white involvement? So I can say what I know, and I don't know everything about African universities, but I'll say a lot of them were founded under colonialism, and a lot of them, you have to understand the system of white supremacy remains intact. So I'll just say law because I'm more familiar with law since I'm a lawyer. If you look at like the law schools in many African nations, like they're still wearing those colonial wigs. They're learning English law. They're learning the system. They're learning the law that the colonizer gave them. So there's not been a decolonization of Africa. That's what has to happen if we're going to talk about something being authentically African or representative of the African people. So I think in many ways, the things we deal with here they're dealing with there. We're trying to break the slavery colonial system in the United States. They're trying to break it in Africa. So it's a way that we all, I think, relate to each other.
Yeah, let me just add to that question. The issue here is it's not really actually about whether we have black people teaching or white people teaching. At the end of the day, we are talking about the curriculum. We are talking about what is being taught. So, for example, if anybody watching or listening, if you actually watch the movie in South Africa, Sarafina, and I think in that movie, one of the things that you pay attention to as well, that that the white supremacy at that time did not like, or the British curriculum system did not like in South Africa, was that the professor or the teacher in that movie was actually teaching African history, was actually teaching, where African were before even the introduction of white supremacy or European to the continent. So they were teaching the history of what we were and who we are. And the British curriculum system in South Africa at that time did not like it. So, and I think at some point of time, you will see, she will be in a classroom and you will see the British government at that time in South Africa will come and, harass them, and even at some point of time, arrested her and took her to jail. So it's the same thing still going on. It doesn't really matter whether black people are being, the teacher in those institutions. At the end of the day, it's about what is being taught. It's about the curriculum. It's about who is residing on those curriculum. It's about, what is it doing to the black majority, the black masses? Is it really empowering them, or is it looking, at the white supremacy as the provider? So those are the things that is still going on the continent. Those are colonial, how they call it, policies or curriculum that was created are still being carried on. For example, when I was in Africa, I didn't really learn anything about Black history, especially about Dr. King, Malcolm X, W.E.B. Du Bois, and all of those things, what they have done. I mean, what we learned, or what I learned in Africa at that time, was only about Dr. King's speech. Dr. King, speech about "I Have a Dream," the dream speech, which of course, that's the only one the white supremacy curriculum can actually teach people. So imagine me being Africa, that was the only thing that they taught me there, and that's the only thing that actually they teach people here, even in the United States here. So that also tells you that we talk about decolonization. These are some of the things that we need to look at. So yeah, those policies are still being in Africa. We don't even in Africa, like Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, we don't really learn about them deeply, about what they even did in America here, their involvement into other African scholars that they met here and how they worked together, how, the movement that they created within the United States that they even took, back home in Africa and all of those things. We don't hear about it. I came here before, I went to HBCU, and then before I even joined other Black organization like WCC and get to know the reality, the true story and things. So yeah, white supremacy of curriculum are still be carried on, in Africa.
Yeah, and you made like a few points. So I anyone doesn't know, so my husband's Ghanaian, so I got to go to Ghana with him, and we go like basically frequently. And it's funny, like when I went the first time, I wanted to see the Dr. Kwame Nkrumah Memorial, when I tell you this thing was empty, like there was only like some people who were there from outside, like, you know, it's funny. So I was asking my father-in-law, I'm like, well, you know, it was his first time being there. You know, when I asked him to go with him, that's his first time being there. So when I asked him, like, well, why haven't you gone? I mean, it's out in the open, like anyone could walk in. Like, he's like, it's just colonial education, like so casually. You talk to, and you know, when I talk to a lot of Ghanaians, they don't know a lot about Kwame Nkrumah, and I think that's very intentional. It's funny, they have the memorial. They recognize this is a great person. They respect him as a person that led Ghana to independence, but many of them have no idea about the things he wrote about. You know, and it's intentional because if you know anything about Kwame Nkrumah, he was calling out not the past, he was calling out our present. When you look at neo-colonialism, when you look at Pan-Africanism, he was talking about the things we're dealing with today. So if the Ghanaian and other African curriculum, you know, not just Kwame Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara, Millikar Cabral, like so many people inside of our history, Maurice Bishop, like so many people who led revolutions of African people that were successful, and their history has been wiped out. If the people were awoken to that and their curriculum reflected their actual history, you would see a very different reality, I think, as far as the masses, but they have to keep us asleep, and that's what they do.
Yeah, so I hope we put into perspective to that question of our viewers. So any other question?
There was one or two more. Okay, I can. Okay, I'll click it. I think this is it. Oh no, that wasn't a question. Okay, I think that might be it.
That's just our statistics.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So and then we can transition to our book club reading. You know, so to our viewer, this is what we do. We bring current event, and then later we get into our book club reading, which is also part of political education as well. We come up here to read and educate, and to make aware to the public, books that you need to read and what is going on. And that is why I love this organization so much. And we ask you to join this organization as well. Subscribe to our Facebook, our YouTube, and if you want to become part of the voice of the many voices, you can send an email at info@wechargecolonialism.org, and we will get back to you as well. Or you can communicate on our Facebook page. We will also communicate with you at any time, or you can send a link even on our YouTube page. We will see it and we will get back to you at any time. All right, so not to delay, we're going to get into our reading for today on page 432. Page 432, 13b, and it's a reflection on the Black women role in the community of slaves. So we know how powerful our women are, our mothers, our sisters. So we are about to discuss some of the narrative that have been placed on them, which is not true. So it is on to us again to change, our story around. All right, so it reads us. The passage of the literature of the Black woman is courageous on its face, but we must also contend with the fact that too many of these rare studies must claim as their signal achievement the reinforcement of fallacious clinches. They have given credence to grossly distorted category through which the Black woman continue to be perceived. In the womb of Nate and Judith here, she has been labeled aggressive or monarchy by the white scholars and castigating female by some Black. Many have recently sought to remedy this situation, but for the time being, at least, we are still confronted with these refined images of ourselves. And for now, we must still assume the responsibility of sheltering them. Initiated, I did not envision paper, the paper as strictly confined to the era of slavery. Yes, as I began to think, though, the issue of the black metric, I came to conclusion that it has to be refuted as it presumed historical inception. The chief problem I encounter stem from the condition of my incarceration, opportunity for researching the issue I wanted to explore. We were extremely limited. I chose therefore to enlighten this piece reflection. It does not pretend to be more than a collection of ideas which will constitute a starting point or framework within which to conduct a rigorous reinvestigation of the Black woman as she interacted with her people and with her oppressive environment during slavery. Continue.
You have any comments?
Yeah, I think he just laying out or the writer just laying out, what they want to discuss about our black women and the false narrative that have been portrayed on the black women, and that false narrative as we begin to perceive it on how our women are being portrayed, that alone in itself, have destroyed um, um, have destroyed the black family, have destroyed the black narrative, have destroyed our perspective, have destroyed our identity. So in order to actually destroy the black family or to destroy the black narrative, you have to get to the women. Once you get to the women, things will be destroyed because the women are the foundation. The black women are the foundation. They are the God, to our existence. So in order to get to the black men or to the Africans, once you get the black woman, into a confined place, you defeat them. So this is just, a narrative of, what he's trying to say here or what the writer is trying to say here. And he's about to lay down actually the importance of black women into our existence.
And this is Angela Davis, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I think the problem, of course, and I think she'll probably get into this, is that there's been things that have been transmitted about African people, African women, and African men. And instead of challenging them, it's been repeated so many times through images, through television, through movies, through different means of propaganda, that at this point, many of us believe it. Instead of challenging them, we kind of subscribe to them. Instead of, trying to uplift ourselves, we subscribe to people on YouTube and Facebook who continue these pathologies. So the onus is on us, once we understand where it comes from, to challenge it and to not be complacent with it. You can move on.
All right. Yeah, like you just said, on one thing that came to mind, as African people, as black people, we cannot define the quality, we cannot define the reflection of our black mother, of our black women, of our black sisters on social media. What we see on social media, that is not what define them. That is now who they are, what we see on social media and things. So those platforms are being used to bring out the few, black, women, who go out there to do things because of what, financial situation or capital and other things. So that doesn't mean non-black are not doing the same thing. But what happened here is non-black do the same thing, but they protect those people who do it there, because at the end of the day, it's going to tarnish the reputation of non-black. So we cannot judge our women on based on what we see on social media. So now let's continue. And she went on to say, I would like to dedicate this reflection, the reflection we're talking about now. I would like to dedicate this reflection to one of the most admirable black leaders to emerge from the rank of our liberation movement, to George Jackson, whom I love and respected in every way. As I came to know and love him, I saw him developing an IQ sensitivity to the real problem facing black women, and thus reflecting his ability to distinguish these from their mythical transposition. Josh was uniquely aware of the need to extricate himself and other black men from the remnant of divisive and destructive myth purporting to represent the black woman. If his life has not been so, if his life has not been so, if his life has not been so persistently and savagely extinguished, it who have been, or he who have surely accomplished a task he has already outlined sometime age. A systematic critique of his past misconception about black women and of their roots in the ideology of the established order. He wanted to appeal to other black men still seemingly disoriented to likewise correct themselves through self-criticism. George viewed this obligation as a revolutionary duty, but also an equally important as an expression of his boundless love for all black women. Continue.
Yeah, I think we need a little more context about Josh.
Okay. All right. So the magical black woman has been reportedly invoked as one of the fatal byproduct of slavery. When the Moynihan Report concentrated this myth, the Washington stamp of approval, spurious content, and propagandistic mission, and also among black people. Unfortunate references to the matriarch and to the matriarch can still be pathologic. Can still be pathologic. No, can still be encounter. Sorry, can still be encounter. Occasionally, there is even acknowledgement of the tangent of pathological it supposedly in danger. Now, this black matriarch, according to Moynihan, define the root of our oppression as a people. An accurate portrait of the African woman in bondage must debunk the myth of the matriarch, such as portray, must simultaneously attempt to eliminate the historical metric of her oppression, and must invoke her variant, often heroic responses to the slaveholder domination.
I think pause or
Okay.
Or you don't want to finish a sentence?
Oh no, if I mean that's just another paragraph I was about to begin.
Okay. So I think what she's talking about is important for people, particularly us in the United States, who might not understand a lot of the history of the rhetoric that we use, and we think it's correct because it sounds correct. But the Moynihan Report was something that was released. I think it was during the Johnson administration, and it was basically analysis of Black family. It was released in the United States. A lot of people link the Moynihan Report and the things that were put forth in that report to a lot of the policies towards African families following its release. So, for example, the child welfare system, the war on drugs. A lot of people link the ideologies that propelled those movements to this Moynihan Report. We talked about it in a previous episode because it created this idea that African families suffer from a pathology, and essentially that if America wants to deal with that pathology, you have to attribute things about us as being defunct and, as being inherently of being negative, basically. So these people were studying Black families and putting out this rhetoric, and a lot of the things that we say today come from that. So I'll give you some examples. Some people say things like, "Oh, the Black woman is too strong, and she pushed the man out the household, and that this is why the Black family is falling apart." You don't know, but that whole idea actually came from the Moynihan Report. You should read the Moynihan Report if you have not read the Moynihan Report. Another idea: Black children, they're uncontrollable. They need to be put inside of a different environment because the family has created these characteristics that are criminal in them. You might say that not knowing that came from the Moynihan Report. So it's something that's very important for our people to go back and examine. There's a lot of times where we just continue certain traditions without understanding where they come from. And a lot of the, and I'm not saying, by the way, that some of us haven't embodied these negative characteristics. Like, absolutely. That's the one thing I think about white supremacy is that they teach you that you are something for so long that over time you start to embody it and take on that persona. So, for example, they taught Black men, you're animals. They taught Black women, you're nothing. You're sexual objects. And repeatedly over time, I believe that does have an effect to where people will start embodying that psychologically. Because you start thinking this is who I am. They've told Black men and Black women, basically to hate each other. I see a lot of that. So it's important for us to, yes, address those, but also understand that a lot of the times we're using rhetoric that does not come from people who had our best interest in mind, but came from the system seeking to control us. Everything when it comes to the United States government against African people is about poverty regulation and population control. They're trying to control this problem. They created a problem whenever they enslaved, released 4 million, but I believe it was 4 million at the time, African people who were supposed to never be citizens. They released them all at once, and now they had this problem they had to find a way to create. So they had to create a prison system. They had to create these Jim Crow laws. They had to create child welfare system. They had to create, so many systems that have come out. An education system that would teach the children to continue on, these falsities. So it's important to read. And I see Miss Hattie posted the Moynihan Report for anyone who wants to read it. I definitely suggest that you do, because it will open your eyes up to a lot of the things the lies that we have repeated unknowingly.
Yeah, and just adding to that, that's one thing as we African have to realize, and have to realize it, and then try to think. And that's one thing about this organization, the WCC. We have our own writers, so we have to be the one to actually narrate our own story, that fit to our perspective, that try to empower this generation and even the next generation to come after us. And you can see that white supremacy have never in any way, says anything good about Black people or about African people. You always hear negative things, from their channel, from their media, and they will push it on and on and on and on. Whenever there's a progress, made by Black people, you never really hear you hardly hear it. If they say it, maybe it'll just be on an occasion and just a few seconds and blank, it's done, it's gone. And you can even see that in the Olympic, even though I want to talk about it, but you can see the narrative with the Olympic, how most Black women, have been denied, based on their physicality, based on their, on their melanin, on their masculine structure. They deny them, and in some other way, based on past colonial policies, past colonial rules, that is still using today, that is still relevant for them today. So how are you going to deny somebody from going to an Olympic based on their melanin, based on their physicality, based on how strong they are? How you going to deny them? You see, so like Malcolm X said, once the European or the Caucasian do it, it's right. But once the Black man or the African man do it, it's wrong. Like Sharik, how do you call it? What's again name? Shakira Richardson. Okay, what she did. Is she the only person, that have taken in marijuana? She's not the only person. On the other hand, non-Caucasian, how do you call it, non-Black, have done it time and time and time and time, and they are still being allowed to go on the Olympic, or they are still being allowed to participate, or they are still being allowed to compete. But why, when a Black man does it, it becomes a problem, and the media drag it, and the Black man is being denied? Why should that happen?
Yeah. I did see a question from Baruti. Is that, could you speak more on the Moynihan Report? What was the focus of LBJ's administration's view about Black targeted social programs, which are contradicted by Patrick Moynihan? I don't want to take too much time because it's a lot you can go into, but I think it's just important to understand. So it's not even, there's a lot of false narratives put in the report, but the report wasn't even the worst part of it, honestly. The worst part was the worst part was not even necessarily the report. The worst part was what the media, they took the findings of the report about there being a pathology in a Black family, and that really became the narrative. So you'll see, like Fox News, for example, or a lot of conservative outlets, they have all these talks about, it's the Black family, it's the Black family. That's what happened. The media, they took these ideas that the Black families were basically had structurally were weak because of they said it was the matriarchy, not knowing, in Africa, many societies were matriarchy. So having a matriarchal family is not a weakness. It's actually many times been, the strength of many of our families. But, they took these narratives and they flew with them. And so now you'll always hear, whenever you want to talk about the violence the police inflict on African people, what do they say? Oh, well, it's because of the Black family. You want to talk about the disproportionate effects or disproportionate education, they always say the Black family. You want to talk about the prison industrial complex, they always say the Black family. Not saying that the Black family is not important. Obviously, you have a family, it could certainly save you from a lot of the ramifications of the system. But the family is not the totality of what's going on here. We're struggling under a white supremacist system. And our families have been the only thing many times that has helped us survive this disastrous experience we've had inside of this country. So the idea that you'll take the blame away from the system and put it towards the family, that's just something that we have to be very cognizant of. That was not something that came from us. That's something that came from the white structure in a way to silence us and to push these narratives that the family has to be regulated and that the family has to be attacked. Because if you look at what happened with the war on drugs, it wasn't even just about the community. It was about eliminating an issue that was created inside of the Black ghettos when you had all these youth who were going out and expressing their discontent with this society. That was a threat to them. So they started using this rhetoric of, we have to regulate the Black families. It was all, a ploy to basically destabilize us and make us no longer a threat to the white society.
And you make a very innovative point. And one of the things that I actually wanted to add, I think we're running out of time, but let me just add a quick contribution to what she just said. And one of the things that we mostly hear during election time, whether from Democrat or from Republican, they always say that during election time or when they're having a campaign debate, they will also mention to us that, we got to tackle the issue in the Black community. We got to tackle the issue of poverty, the issue of how they call it, institution and all of those things. They will say all of these things, right? But some son says to them, right? Is the Black community not part of the United States? Is the Black community not part of America? Is the Black community not part of the non-Black community that are receiving all the benefits or almost all the benefit from the federal government, from the local government, from every bureaucratic in the United States? Are they not part of the system? You see, so they leave the issues, right? And then what happened here is they leave the issue and then discuss what? The symptom. But what caused them, the symptom, they leave it and then discuss what is not really necessary. And at the end of the day, after they have getting Black votes or after they have getting into power, they no longer discuss about what is happening within the Black community and thing. And it always comes to mind, the Black community is also part of the other non-Black community who are receiving full benefit from the federal government or from the local government. And all from the state, all from the counties and those things. All the grants that are going to non-Black community also need to go to Black community because the Black community is also part of the United States as well. All right, so let's continue. I think this should be the last part. We're already running out of time. So lingering beneath the notion of the Black matric is an unspoken incident of our female forebearing as having actively assented to slavery. The notorious clench, the emasculating female, has its root to the fallacious inference that playing a central part in the slave family, the Black woman related to the slave-holding class as collaborator. Nothing could be further from the truth. In the most fundamental sense, the slave system did not and could not engender and recognize a matriarchal family structure. Inherent in the very concept of the monarchy is power. It could have been exceedingly risky for the slave-holding class to openly acknowledge symbol of authoritative female symbol, no less than may such legitimate concentration of authority might eventually unleash their power against the slave system itself. The American brand of slavery stove towards a rigidified disorganization in family life, just as it has to prescribe all potential social structure within which Black people might forge a collective and conscious existence. One mother and female were brutally separated. Children, when they became of age, were branded and frequently served from their mother. That the mother was the only legitimate parent of her child did not therefore mean that she was even permitted to guide it to maternity. I think we can stop here because we run out of time. Yeah.
You go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. All right.
No, I was saying you go ahead, comment.
Okay. Yeah. So what we discussed, I think you can see from the end of this paragraph or this paragraph or this reading, it gave you a clear perspective of how today's society, when we see single mother and why the father is not there. So it gave you a perspective of where this whole narrative came from, where you see single mother today. I'm not saying, there is not a problem, with our family structure system, but this reading that she put out here, she wants you to look at from a very perspective of how single mother have become in existence today, or even single parent, of how mother are struggling today. It came from a very broad perspective of destroying the family structure, destroying the family or tree of Black people. And she also mentioned something that if you really want to study this the structure of family or Black family, you have to go back and see how it well and think, and which of course slaveholders saw it, and that it was a threat to them. They tried to they tried to, how they call it, destroy that family structure, because it was bear in mind again, slavery was also a form of business to them, economic means to them. So in order to succeed, if there is anything that was in place to hold a Black family together, and that could mean taking away money from the slaveholder or the white supremacy, they could destroy. And those are some of the things that they did. Today you see children are left, Black children are left most often to struggle on their own, in their youthful age, and while the parent, are now they are being separated from them.
Yeah, and I really like when she made the point, because another narrative that I think gets pushed today, this idea that African women were, conspiring with the slave system. You kind of see it today, that same idea. Now, there's, I think, both men and women, there are people who would be in the so-called bourgeoisie who basically subscribe to the ideals of the system and assimilate into the system. But the narrative that gets pushed, I think, is that African women are a part of the system. And I've also heard the narrative that African men are part of the system. I don't know if you heard, there was this stupid article that came out a while back that was like, Black men are the white supremacists of the Black community. Similar things get said, this idea that Black women, because, some of us do better economically, that they're part of the system. We just have to, like you said, Frank, we have to be very knowledgeable about the origins of these things. And ultimately, if something doesn't further our liberation, and the only way you can further our liberation is through our unity, if something's not furthering us coming together, is not healing us, then why do we have to keep these narratives going? And I think some of us have been so hurt and abused by the system that we would rather just talk and propel these narratives, rather than just have the mindset to say, you know what, this is not helpful to us. So let's move past, these false narratives and try to do something to heal ourselves. So I see we're close on time. I don't want to go, because I know you do want to make an announcement about 12 o'clock?
Yeah. Okay, so 12 o'clock, we're going to be on live right here again.
Eastern time.
Come again?
Eastern time, 12 Eastern.
Oh, yeah, 12 Eastern time. So we're going to be here live discussing revolutionary repatriation, back to Africa. And there's a reason why we actually call it revolutionary. So when we get on live, we're going to explain, to you why we even have to put that part as revolutionary repatriation, to Africa. So we will be here giving some insight, some knowledgeable information about, why we should repatriate to Africa, or why you don't want to repatriate to Africa, and some solution as to, if you don't want to, you can stay, but what you should do, and if you want to go, what you need to do as well, to repatriate to Africa, and repatriating, what you need to do to claim what belongs to you, and all of those things. So we're going to be here 12 o'clock Eastern time to give some, knowledge and some education, to our people. Again, this is our time. We need to take what belongs to us. We cannot sit and wait for people to come and tell us how we need to be, or where we need to go, or at what time we need to go to Africa.
And minor correction, I know you probably just misspoke, but it won't be on here necessarily. It'll be on Clubhouse. So Miss Hattie put the Clubhouse link also on our Facebook page. There's an invite. You could get the Clubhouse link to chime into this conversation that we're going to be having. The goal is to have these meetings weekly. So we hope you all will join.
All right, so it's nothing much to add. I guess we'll see you guys again. And just to close out, our Black women, they are the prettiest. They are, visionary. So we should not judge them based on what we see on social media. Those are all propaganda, tools that is used to divide the Black family and to distance ourselves from the Black family, and then try to pursue people who will not, I would say, in quote, recognize us at the end of the day. The Black women are the foundation to the Black family. We should know that, and we cannot judge them based on what we see on social media. All those are just propaganda. All right, so if nothing else, we'll see you in our next discussion by 12 Eastern time.